We're getting into the middle of September. The Penn State wrestling season is just around the corner, and we're here again on the Penn State Wrestling Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. That is Greg Pickel from BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. He is our wrestling reporter that's going to give you all the information you need to know about the latest with the Nittany Lions wrestling team. And of course, as we start the show, just want to remind you, first off, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our endeavor to grow this wrestling show. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, share with your other friends, because we know the wrestling community is super passionate, and we want people to get all the information and find all of the things that they want to get out of the Penn State wrestling season. So, Greg, welcome to the show. What's going on this week?
Yeah, T. Frank, lots to get to. There is another national tournament, freestyle wrestling that is going to feature a Penn State commit. We're going to get into that. We're going to look back on the U20 Worlds and how Penn State fared there, and then we'll close things out by explaining, or trying to explain anyway, the current ongoing beef between Carter Starocci and AJ Ferrari. So,
glad you phrased it that way.
Today. Yes. So good show coming up. And T. Frank, it is hard to believe, but we're about 2 months out from wrestling getting underway, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. I'm trying to remember when they started last year, but I think about 2 months from now, about the middle of November is right. So yeah, media day is going to be here before we know it, and all those good things that come with it. So lineup decisions starting to be made for Penn State as the freestyle scene comes to a close. Pretty successful one for Penn State so far.
Yeah, so let's get into that. The U20s, we previewed that last show, so it makes sense. We'll recap it here. What happened, and what were your biggest takeaways from the weekend?
Yeah, so there's really nowhere else to start here. We'll start with, of course, Luke Lilladahl, the 125-pound, very accomplished Nittany Lion wrestler who is obviously an incoming freshman and also now the U20 world champ at 57 kilograms. He has won and medal at Worlds before. And he had a tremendous tournament. And it was yet another indication, T. Frank, that Luke Lilladahl is probably going to be Penn State's starter at 125 pounds this year. Like I said, he won the 57-kilogram division at Worlds, which basically, I think it's like 125.1 pound or something like that, something very similar. So
right.
Certainly he's competing and he's succeeding at the freestyle weight, same that he will in the folk style world as he gets settled in at Penn State. So, yeah, very good showing for him. Impressive all the way around. And I think that, again, with assuming Braden Davis is too big to hold 125, Luke Lilladahl is not your only option there, but he is your most logical one. And a win like this, combined with everything else he's done over the last couple of months, to me, T. Frank just reinforces that he's the guy of the future for Penn State at 125. And to start or to finish his, folk style career for now with a U20 World Championship is certainly an impressive way to transition back into the folk style college wrestling scene for the first time, which is something he, again, started to do when he enrolled for classes and is now going to do even more so as we get closer to the season.
Has your opinion changed on that over time, or have you been assuming this is the way it was going to go?
No, it made sense for it to go this way. It was never a guarantee, but I think the writing was kind of on the wall at Nationals last year. Like, Braden Davis looked like a big 125, and I think obviously when he was weighing in, he was right around that weight. So I think common sense said it was probably going to be tough for him to hold the weight. And then I can't remember what freestyle event he entered earlier this year, and I don't even think he wrestled in it. I feel like he withdrew before he even wrestled, but he was entered in a weight class that was higher than 57 kilograms, 125 pounds. And that was another light bulb moment where it's like, okay, this guy might be ready to move up. Nature might be telling him that no longer can he stay at 125 pounds. So, I think when that happened, combined with what we saw at Nationals, it all makes sense. And, I'll answer the obvious question, and I don't want to get too far away from the U20 talk, but if Luke Lilladahl is the guy at 125, who's the guy at 133? Is it Braden Davis, assuming that's the weight he's moving to, or is it Aaron Nagel? So another fascinating conversation to have there. Obviously, Braden Davis does have a red shirt available. Aaron Nagel does not. Aaron Nagel came to Penn State from Minnesota last year. I think had an okay year. He battled some illnesses and injuries and stuff, and we'll see where things go. There's some rumors that he may not be 100% at this point. So time will tell, but that is yet another spot in this lineup we will be keeping an eye out for. And as we will discuss in future episodes of the BWI Penn State Wrestling Show, there are a lot of questions left to answer about this lineup. There's no doubt about that.
And it helps that, we talked about this on the football show this week. Attrition when you can insert ultra talented players in place of other ultra talented players, it's a lot easier than having to figure it out on the fly. And it feels like Penn State always has a quality answer for the most part at most of its lineup spots. So let's get back to the U20 recap. What else stood out to you other than Luke Lilladahl in the results or the process of that particular event?
Yeah, so next up, you have silver medalist Zack Ryder at 79 kilograms. He's a guy that finished second, had a very good day one. Did not really have any issues on the first day, and then on the second day, faced a really good opponent and fell, but certainly nothing to be ashamed of. Another incoming freshman for Penn State finishing second at U20 Worlds is certainly an accomplishment that he should be proud of, even though I'm sure he set out and wanted to be the guy that, like Luke Lilladahl, came back to Penn State with a gold medal, but that was not the case. 79 kilograms, 174 pounds. So, does he have any shot of sliding into Carter Starocci's old spot? Off the bat, I don't think so. But certainly, again, the talent is there. And I think that's what makes these next couple of months for us, T. Frank, so fascinating, seeing how some of these young guys are doing on the international stage. You combine that with the fact that the Penn State returners, guys who were here last year, some of them are moving up in weight, and it's kind of up and down the lineup. Carter Starocci, obviously, one guy who's planning to do so. It sounds like Levi Haynes is another. We just talked about Braden Davis. So, you look at these results internationally and think, okay, these guys can prove something. But I think if they're going to have the chance to do it, it's going to be something that they maybe earn or don't get the opportunity for based on where these returning guys are moving up and down.
Right.
So,
yeah,
very good tournament for Zack Ryder. There's no doubt about that. PJ Duke, a class of 2025 commit who we'll talk about in a second. He finished third at 70 kilograms. Had a really nice tournament. Josh Barr, current Penn State wrestler, finished second at 86 kilograms. And Penn State fans remember us talking a year ago that there was a belief at one point that he might be able to start for Penn State at 184 last year. They ended up needing him to do that, but they were able to preserve his red shirt. The question now, of course, just is he at 184, which depends on where Carter Starocci is going. We assume 184, so the answer there would be no. And when you do the kilogram to pound conversion, 86 kilograms, where Josh Barr, the redshirt freshman, was a silver medalist, is 189.5 pounds. So does he try and go up and challenge Lucas Cochran for the 197 spot? And by the way, Connor Mirasola is another guy that Penn State has in that same conversation. He finished fifth at U20 Worlds on incoming freshmen. So, a good showing for Penn State. Obviously, some guys would have liked to finish better than they did. But now the questions, it really continues to come into focus even more so than before, just where these guys are going to end up when it comes to time for Cael Sanderson and co to set the lineup. And I think we learned some, but not everything we'll need to know about that situation.
What's this kind of a philosophical question here, I think, which is a T. Frank special, but what's the best... If you have a lot of freshmen, a lot of these guys are forcing their way into the lineup. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for Penn State wrestling? Is that a sign of this is a young, inexperienced team that may struggle in big moments? Or is it, hey, here's the next wave of national champions? How do you view the potential outcome? Because I think fans generally like to see the young players or young wrestlers or young athletes take the stage as soon as possible so you can maximize the time for, eventually historic levels of success if you can get to 4 national championships, etc. So what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, so the big thing to me, T. Frank, and I think that you hit on a really good question here, is obviously Penn State over the years with Cael Sanderson has had great success when it comes to returning guys who are really capable of taking what they did a year ago and building on it, whether that's going from a one-time national champion to a two-time national champion, or a third-place finisher to a second-place finisher, or a non-first-place finisher to a first-place finisher. That's always been a way Penn State has continued to stay on top of the wrestling world for so long during Cael Sanderson's time here, is because guys make progress over the years. Well, of course, all these guys who were 3-4, multi-time NCAA champs, they had to start somewhere, T. Frank. And it's, Penn State's had such a successive run that I think we sometimes forget that not so many of those guys, they started out a long time ago, but, some of these Penn State guys now find themselves in that position. When you think of Braden Davis wrestling as a freshman a year ago, and you think of Tyler Casack wrestling as a freshman a year ago, there was another two guys who may be moving in weight depending on how things shake out. So, no, it's a good question. I do wish we had a little bit more concrete info, and we just don't right now, about where these weight classes are going to go and where these guys are going to move to, just simply because I think to answer that question, you got to know what the lineup's going to look like and who is starting for the first time potentially and who is at a new weight for the first time potentially. I will say this. You would think it was Greg Kirkfleet and Bo Bartlett coming back. You have pretty much a good chunk of your starters coming back. You would think things would be more settled than they are as we talk about this in mid-September, and they aren't. I'm sure they are more so internally, of course, than externally. But, certainly there's a lot to figure out. And so it does have Penn State in a pretty interesting place in terms of, and this isn't how you ask the question, but I think the best way to put it is there's a lot in flux, and that is it's abnormal for the most part for a Cael Sanderson-led team at this time of year. But you made the point a second ago, and it was a good one. You can have flux and be okay with it when you're deciding between the options that you have to decide between that are all a very, very high level of athlete and wrestler. Yeah.
You mentioned PJ Duke a little bit earlier. Was there more you wanted to talk about with him at the Senior Worlds this past weekend?
Yeah, very good performance at the U20, and now he will be at the World Team Trials for the men's freestyle, the non-Olympic weights that did compete in pairs. So he is the only Penn State connection. As we talk about this, sometimes that entry list gets updated late, but as of right now, he's the only Penn State guy on that list. Class of 2025 commit is the number 4 pre-seed at 70 kilograms. It'll be interesting to see how he does there. He's going to be wrestling older, more experienced guys that have spent a lot more time on the U.S. and international freestyle scene than him. So to come in with the number 4 pre-seed is impressive, and we'll see if he can perform to or outperform that spot. But certainly I think that's something to keep an eye on, is how he does at that kind of a competition where, again, he will be going against, look, just some of the names that quickly throw out in his bracket. You have Jordan Oliver, you have James Green, you have Paniro Johnson, you have Will Lewan, Alec Pintello is the number 1 seed. So, if you're familiar with your college wrestling guys, that's a lot of talent, either past, current, present, whatever, that he'll be going up against as a high school senior to be. So interested to see what he looks like. It's kind of amazing as much as he accomplished. T. Frank, he still has another year of high school to go before he gets to Penn State.
So the last thing here that I think we're going to talk about today, Carter Starocci, AJ Ferrari. Can you explain what's going on for me, please?
Yeah, I will give it my best shot. So AJ Ferrari, who obviously I think as many Penn State and college wrestling fans know, had some off the mat issues that led him to leave Oklahoma State, where he was a national champ. He has now popped back up at Cal State Bakersfield. I didn't really think the comment that set off this whole thing, it was something to the effect of, like, from AJ Ferrari about, what if there was a 197-pound national championship match between him and Carter Starocci? And I'm pretty sure he implied that he would win that. And why, of course he would. What's he going to say? No, I'm going to lose.
Right.
Well, Starocci took that to a new level in responding, saying that, they could put a significant amount of money up for a match on the NLWC, or I'm sorry, the All-Star Classic match that comes to Penn State last year and is supposed to be coming again this year. And it sort of just called him out and trying to set up a match between the two of them. Ferrari responds, why aren't you going to 197 like you said? Because Starocci said, I can't remember because he deleted the tweet now, but it was not weight lower than that. So will anything come of this? No. Is it a reminder that Carter Starocci has no issue saying whatever he's thinking on social media? Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main takeaway there.
Yeah.
We'll see. I can't fathom a time that those two would get on the mat this year, but certainly if Starocci would go to 197, which right now sounds very unlikely, I think you see him settle in at 184, then maybe that would happen. But otherwise, it was a lot of social media buzz, and then the tweet got deleted, and the whole thing just kind of stopped there. So we'll see if there's anything more to come of it, T. Frank. But, again, I think Carter Starocci is very driven to be a 5-time NCAA champ. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it seems to me that at times maybe he feels like he doesn't get the respect he deserves as a 4-time NCAA champ that's coming back for a 5th. And certainly there's a lot of people across college wrestling who would love to ensure that whether it's themselves or a teammate, whatever, and to try to stop him from making that quest by beating him on the mat. So interesting offseason for him, but there's no question that he goes into the season, I don't want to say is the number one, probably is the top story in college wrestling just because of A, his social media profile, B, his obvious historic wrestling accomplishments, and C, the more history he could add to his impressive resume this year. So that's the latest on him. We'll see where things go from here.
I know this is a question that doesn't have an answer, and really it's probably more opinion-based than anything, but is that good for the sport?
I think so.
Is it just noise? So you think it's good to drum up interest in MMA boxing style of having guys be combative verbally out in public?
Yeah, I don't. So he took it. Carter Starocci took it a little bit too far. I think that's why he deleted the tweet. So I wouldn't say going to the level, the length that he did, is in the best interest of the sport. But a little back and forth, yeah. I mean, I think sometimes it's not the same as football, but these guys have headgear on, and you don't often get to see their personality. They don't always wrestle on TV. If they do, there's not always post-match interviews. If there are, they're usually short, and you don't really get to learn much about them and their story off the mat. And so I do think some of this is good to build some of that interest outside of the national tournament where we always see it. So, yeah, to the level it went, probably doesn't need to happen. But just the general idea of having some back and forth across the sport, yeah, I don't think it can hurt.
And it doesn't hurt if you want to go to the next level, and the next level for you is MMA. So building a personality and a brand, all those things.
Correct.
It's always interesting because I never know what is calculated and what is honest in these situations because of all of those things. So we'll see, and I think we'll enjoy it when it happens. Greg Pickel, speaking of enjoying things, enjoyed your conversation today here on the Penn State Wrestling Show. Where can people follow you and find more information if they want more wrestling content?
Yeah, check it out at Greg Pickel on Twitter, and of course, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com inside the Lions Den forum. We'll all have the latest wrestling news as things happen. I said it last week. I'll say it again this week, and I know it's starting to sound like a broken record, so I apologize, but I do expect some scheduling news at some point. Some other schools have started to put out at least their non-conference schedule, Rutgers being the latest to do so. So, obviously we're still waiting on Big Ten dates. We have opponents, and so that's the next thing we're watching for. But stay tuned. It's coming, I promise. It's just taking a little bit longer than usual.
And when it comes, we'll talk about it here on the Penn State Wrestling Show from Blue White Illustrated. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Greg Pickel. We'll be